Good evening. The news gang is here. Rumble in the mountain, a summons at last from the president. But what is the central question? The bad manners competition. Who is the filthiest of them all? We revisit the jubilee that Kibra made and the post-mortem results of NASA's mutilated remains. Also, news gang, just who has bewitched the police service? So much for police reforms and the power to suffer and do all that appertains. How have our universities come to this? That and much more, including the kicker, the memo, the take, the punchline, and of course, the angle. Ladies and gentlemen,
Joe, that was an interesting
the summons from the mountain. The president finally calling the troops who are calling it rallying the backyard. Or is it the Sagana Baraza? What is really going on in that place, Bwana Gachuri?
Tomorrow, Sagana is the place to be. Let me use the cliche.
And you're going to be there. All roads.
Let me use the cliche. All roads lead to Sagana.
Yes.
Or all eyes will be on Sagana.
Yeah.
Basically,
and the president will be the man of the moment.
Man of the moment. So, for the first time in quite a while, the president will be coming face to face with his backyard brigade, so to say. It's been a while, and you've had consistent calls for a parliamentary group meeting to be organized for Jubilee Party. And this is not per se a Jubilee PG. It is a meeting for all elected Mount Kenya leaders, MCAs, governors, senators, members of the National Assembly, and what they're calling community leaders. It is interesting to note that the summons to this meeting were issued via county commissioners and deputy county commissioners. They were being called by the respective county commissioners in Kirinyaga, in Muranga, in Kiambu, in Nyandarua. Those are the guys who are calling.
Wasn't there something also from Parliament, like from the whips?
Not at all. What happened is members of the county assemblies, their majority whips,
MCAs.
Did a follow-up message to all the MCAs. Okay. It's basically what you're calling it, a baraza. And you can expect quite a number of things. One, there has been concerns from some of these leaders that the president has neglected his backyard on matters development. Probably he has an opportunity tomorrow to explain to them whether he has done it or not. Number two, he has been telling them to tone down their political rhetoric and focus on development. Quite a number of them have defied him, so to say. And that's why you see, if you're to gauge where the political temperatures are highest currently, it's Central Kenya. That is the home of Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke, if you may like it. So tomorrow he's basically having a baraza of Kieleweke and Tanga Tanga.
But Linus, it is interesting that the president hasn't called a formal parliamentary group meeting for a long time.
If at all.
And here he is with the backyard brigade, as Gachuri calls them, finally calling them home, and whatever the agenda is going to be. What is the mindset right now, as you would imagine, of the president going into a meeting like this, considering actually that even some of the people who have been talking at him in some instances are actually going to be in that meeting?
First, Joe, I don't think it's a meeting in the conventional sense compared to parliamentary meetings or party group meetings. This is a community meeting. It's a regional gathering. And I think there'll only be one issue really on the agenda, and that'll be succession. 2022 is coming up. The election of 2022 is not too far away. President Uhuru Kenyatta is halfway through his second term. And in 2 years, the community must decide what direction to take politically. This is typical of the trend every end of second term, because we saw a bit of this congregating in 2012 when President Mwai Kibaki's term was coming to an end. Way back in the 70s, the meetings were even more intense because there was this whole panic about Mzee Jomo Kenyatta advancing in age and therefore approaching the end of his term in office on natural grounds. And the community was saying, okay, what next? And that's when the Change the Constitution movement came to being. I think the president will be explaining one thing to the meeting tomorrow, BBI. What is the intention of BBI? And what is BBI? In my view, BBI, especially in the central Kenya sense, is something akin to the Change the Constitution movement. And the point that will be made especially to those who have been rallying around the Deputy President, William Ruto, is, look here, what is the arrangement post-Uhuru? Where will the community sit in the power, in the scheme of things? And they are backed by a number of arguments, including one made in this very studio by one Francis Atoli, who has constantly said, President Uhuru Kenyatta is too young to go.
Where do you want him to go?
Yes. So I'm expecting a meeting that will not admit Francis Gachuri in it, or any other person with microphones, because the content will be classified. This is deep succession. I also think it's only going to be the beginning of the consolidating of what has been a very divided central Kenya political base. President Uhuru Kenyatta has really struggled when it comes to holding the base. First, for a number of reasons. The key of all is his deputy, William Ruto, has made inroads in there by passing him. And so tomorrow he'll be trying to say, hey guys, here is my plan. And because, and Francis Gachuri pointed out very correctly, the critics in central Kenya has been asking, what is your plan? You went into handshake and now you're talking BBI. We neither know what is BBI about, nor what the handshake was.
And a number of people actually have been saying, people who you talk to people on the ground, and they've been saying, well, you came with this man called William Ruto, and you told us, this is my friend, this is the guy we are running with. After I do my 10, then we will basically give it to him. So what are these stories that is a bad man, whatever? No one has really come to explain to us what went wrong at one level. But I've also seen something interesting happening over the last few days, especially now that you talked about BBI, where we saw the other day all the leaders from that region ganging up together, really closing ranks, you know, ignoring all the differences they've had, and say when there was some reports that there was to be a parliamentary system thing proposed by the BBI, and we saw the region rise up, which basically rekindled memories of the historical relationship of central Kenya with a parliamentary system. I mean, they've always been very apprehensive about this thing. One, because it speaks to a situation where power is held by the number of parliamentary seats you have, and they tend to be disadvantaged. Even now they have talked about it, that, you know, the number of parliamentary seats that we have in the bigger sort of Kikuyu nation, if you like, even if you were to put together with Rift Valley and all that, is not enough for them to come to the table in the same manner that the likes of Moses Kuria would always bandy this thing of 8 million votes and whatever. It's not exactly the same thing. So we've seen that. But Yvonne, there is the real issue that the economy is really not doing well. And so the things that the Mount Kenya people tend to talk about, you know, we have not seen development here. What is this that the president can really offer, going there and saying, okay, you guys have been complaining, this is what I'm bringing home, at a time when all of us are really complaining. The government is saying, you know, let's buckle up, this is going to be tough.
And indeed, you know, like you say, the economy is tough, but the calls for more development in his backyard have predated our economic situation today. There have been cries from central Kenya for the president to do more, you know, in central Kenya. So, you know, I'm not sure to what extent that will be a big issue. I mean, I think the BBI, as we've said, did the president ever really explain to, you know, his backyard that this is what it's about? So this is the handshake. Okay, it was a surprise, and that is something that, you know, has been said of him.
Some people would say, did he ever explain
to anyone? Yes, but maybe those in central Kenya felt that, you know, out of everybody else, that he owed them, an explanation. But I have a couple of questions. I mean, I know, you know, a day in politics is a long time. Has he left it too late? I mean, look at the state of division right now with the Kieleweke and Tanga, especially amongst the MPs from Central Kenya. The divisions are so deep. But, you know, we have quite some time yet between then and now. But I think this is the time. And by the way, Gachuri, has the deputy party leader been invited to this meeting?
No, I am not sure.
It's not a party meeting.
It's not a party meeting.
Oh, you said it's a community meeting. Okay, got that.
Actually,
but,
actually, Yvonne,
his constituency back home is
there's a very common narrative in Central Kenya, and Moses Kuria likes it very much. Every so often you'll hear him say, "Turudi nyuma ya hema."
Okay.
You know, behind the tent.
Right.
You know,
discuss your
this is a very normal thing
issues.
when people go for dowries. Go behind the tent, regroup, rearrange, and then
be that as it may.
A common position.
I think my last point on this one is, I don't know if we have seen the president play the role of party leader. You know, to the extent that he's able to say, this is who we are as a party, this is the way in which we're going. Okay, I know he's tried, you know, a bit, you know, with the vague remarks that, you know, there should be less politicking and that sort of thing. But I think this is a test on his leadership of a party to say, okay, guys, this is the direction in which we're going. And I, as the party leader, am saying, I think perhaps this is the start of seeing his party leadership skills being put to the test. I don't know. But I see Kai just nodding his head.
Yes. This party leadership, and you've spoken about your PG, and you also mentioned it. We said they haven't met in a very, very long time.
Have they ever met?
Since 2017, after the nullification
They've not had a PG.
of the presidential election. That's the last time they met, and they haven't met since then. And you talk about divisions. We saw it even clearly during Kibra, the by-elections. We had Jubilee party members or legislators clearly supporting the ODM candidate now Koana feature. That's just one instance. And then someone said there are no permanent enemies or friends in politics, they're just permanent interests. What are the interests here? At the time ilikuwa because of this handshake, sasa ndo watu wanaanza kuegemea upande. That would not have been seen or heard of, let's say, a year and a half ago, even before the handshake. But this is clearly happening, and I don't think, we didn't think at the time we would say it. But then you talk about development and visits of the president to Central Kenya. Those have been very few. In fact, over the weekend, kulikuwa na council visit. Murang'a was to go there. In fact, him and the deputy president actually both canceled meetings to Central. Of course, the deputy president's camp says that they were clashing events. He had two at the same time. That's why he didn't go for that. But then there are those who have said his visits to Nyanza and Western and that part of the country have increased them. He has gone there many more times than he has to Central Kenya. They keep saying it's because of the handshake. But be as it may, Kenya's history of having parties as vehicles for elections also is an issue we need to look at. Does Jubilee have the deep roots of maybe taking the next candidate who could be William Ruto to the elections? Do you think Jubilee would be the party that he would use come 2022? Or how are the party dynamics going to change? Because remember, they've not had party grassroots elections.
They're supposed to hold them
by
next year.
March 2020, according to the Political Parties Act, they're supposed to have one by 2022 because they currently just have interim party officials. So they need to have elections by March 2020. So what will that be like? Will they really come together as a party and actually hold such an election?
I think also that from just political standpoint, if you are Uhuru Kenyatta and every day you meet with Raila Odinga, you are talking about this BBI and that sort of thing, one gets the sense that they would be facing each other in a certain room and he would be feeling a certain degree of embarrassment. The fact that he is not able to even take that Raila to Central and they have a meeting with the people in much the same way, for example, that he's able to do that in Nyanza and Western and almost without a problem. So I think that there is a sense in which he may not say it, these people may not say, but there's a certain pressure you feel as a leader that I need to sort out this backyard so that it's easy for him to take Raila Odinga, for example, to Murang'a or Nyeri or whatever, and they talk to the people about BBI. We haven't seen that. And one gets the feeling that it is really because the ground,
Mr. Foti. Yeah, may I just add something? Is this, does this tell us then that BBI is, we keep saying it's going to be released. When? But it's also interesting that this comes now. Perhaps it's to sort of sit down and talk with his base before BBI. Could this just be a sign that, the release of that report
could be next week?
Could be next week, yes. Yeah. So perhaps this is just an attempt to solidify the base first ahead of, BBI next week or
at least two times. Yeah. At least 2 times there have been talk of the president taking the BBI narrative to the Central Kenya region or taking the handshake narrative to the Mount Kenya region, which were silently cancelled. And even now, you will see many people asking, are you sure ataenda? Because even the Muranga function, there was almost 100% certainty that the president would go.
The security team had
gone there. Actually, for a whole week, the planning was going on, only for the president to cancel the meeting, his visit that very morning. And quite a number of people were disappointed. I mean, we spoke to a few and they were saying, kwani ni siku gani president atakuja? What will it take for him to come? And you could see some John the Baptist kind of movement. You see Fred Matiang'i was there, James Macharia was there, Joe Musheru was there. And listening clearly to some of the things that were being said by especially CS's Joe Musheru and CS Macharia, you could tell something. When CS Joe Musheru was saying the best thing that has happened to this administration is the handshake, actually he was calling it a miracle. And you heard CS Macharia say the president atakuja kufungua some certain barabara that is supposed to be constructed. He will come there in person, hata kuwa kama wale watu wana launch projects kwa kanisa. Obviously, that was in reference to the deputy president. And that tells you of the tension, not only in the Mount Kenya region, but also within the cabinet. There are some cabinet secretaries who clearly are aligned to the president and others clearly aligned to the deputy president. They will not say this publicly, but in a subtle way, even listening to some of the things they are saying, you can clearly tell there are some tensions therein. And it is also a fact that the deputy president has been making quite some inroads in the Mount Kenya region. And it would antagonize the president himself because this is his political bedrock. So when the deputy president makes inroads there...
You said bedrock or bedroom?
Bedroom, yeah. That's
bedroom.
I was heading there.
I'm avoiding the bedroom story. I'm totally avoiding the bedroom story. It is his bedrock. So he would want to consolidate it. And I would think tomorrow's meeting is part of that attempt to consolidate it. But there's another question that I would probably want to throw around here. What about the members of parliament who are allied to the deputy president, the so-called Tanga Tanga movement? They will be there, and some of them, I spoke to them and they were very apprehensive that there could be some tongue lashing like has happened previously. So even as they go there, they're going ready and prepared in the event that watalimwa wako to standby.
How about we move from the bedrock
to the bedroom? Yes.
This is my projection about tomorrow's meeting. It will take exactly the same shape as the Kasarani Akorino meeting did. If we remember the president breaking into vernacular, basically saying, I know what I'm doing. So tomorrow I think he'll take it to the second stage, which is, here is what I'm doing. These are my thoughts. Out of BBI, this is what you will get. This is my plan for you in BBI. Because his critics in Tanga Tanga, members of parliament allied to Deputy President Ruto from Central Kenya, the main criticism they have been giving is, hey, what is the alternative? You haven't told us what your plan is. You haven't mentioned to us what you intend to do. So in Sagana, I expect that the president, probably using the same language he used in Kasarani, he'll have no reason not to. I think everybody in the room will be understanding that language. He'll speak to them and tell them, this is the plan. And this is my plan beyond 2022. And we should see all these things in context. We remember that in February 2018, William Kamket, member of parliament for Tiati, came up with a proposal, an amendment bill to introduce the office of a powerful prime minister. And then shortly afterwards, a month later, we had the handshake. And then after that, we also had all these narratives coming up, and I would repeat the argument by Atoli that President Uhuru Kenyatta is too young to retire. So I think that's what the conversation will be like. Yeah. Tongue lashing, maybe not. This is a time to reach out. And then for us, what we will do, maybe as observers of this politics... Kusemezana, yes. I don't think the likes of Akina Ishungwa will be told off or anything. They'll be treated like prodigal sons. Come back, you don't understand. You don't know about succession. What's your problem? Here, I will tell you what happens in this level of politics. And then after that, what we'll be telling, even if nothing is reported out of that meeting, I don't expect you to succeed beyond the tent where, no, there'll be a tent for tea for journalists. You know that one.
We might be lucky to get them walking in.
Yes. What will give us the telltale signs after this is the behavior of the Tanga MPs after Sagana. Will they still be hopping with the Deputy President to fundraisers? Will they be that close? It's very, very easy to tell. And you can already tell, by the way, a number of them have been dropping off quietly, starting from Moses Kuria.
Talking about dropping off, there's one topic that has refused to drop off.